I have taken and drawn some sketches of some different ideas that I'm thinking about for executing a form on this block. And I'm going to go with this one up here at the top for no particular reason other than it looks a bit like a bird. But please don't feel any pressure to do a bird-like shaped one. It just happens to be the one on the top left-hand corner of the page. So I'm going to think about this design, but I'm also going to pay attention to the fact that this is just a 2D elevation drawing, and I have a three-dimensional object. So there's a bunch of things that are not shown in this drawing that need to find their way into my final shape. I also want to think about the 2 inches of a consistent radius or contour that I'm going to need to maintain. And to do that, I've just taken a piece of paper and I've cut it with what seems like a fairly smooth radius. And I'm going to use this one here. This is the one I'm going to try and use as my constant radius. So I've made this piece of paper. I just cut it with scissors so that I can hold that shape up against my geometry in a bunch of different points, just to test to make sure that I'm maintaining that same curve all along some kind of direction on the shape. I don't know where that's going to apply yet. I'm thinking it might be something that's kind of like that contour right there, where it fits up against, sorry, it's hard to see on my camera. That contour on that kind of top of the head-like area. But I might find someplace else in order to maintain it. I don't know, I'm gonna figure it out as I go. I also wanna say that this isn't fully mapped out in my mind. I'm just gonna start carving on this thing. I just wanted to have a game plan for what the general shape was, so I know certain areas. For instance, here I've got a point, and here I've got a point. I know I need to maintain that length. So if I start carving away on this block like crazy, I might remove too much material. So I'm just keeping that in the back of my head. Okay, let's get started. All right, so I'm gonna take Now, one thing I could do is, as I'm thinking about this shape and looking at my drawing over there, I might take and use a Sharpie or something to draw a few lines on it so I have a contour to run up against. This will help me kind of match with what's over there, but also help me make sure, again, I'm not going to take away too much material from a place that needs to have it. So I could take and kind of draw, let's say, whatever that contour line might be. Oh, and I missed that a little bit. There we go. All right, so I've got my contour line running around my block, and that helps me, carve more intelligently. And I could also do some other contour lines, like, let's say I know that I want that kind of dip shape. So I could come and map out some of these other contours. Onto my shape. So there I've got kind of like that bird shape that I originally suggested. I've just done that on one side, and maybe I don't need to do it everywhere. All of this is going to get carved away eventually in this area, but it's at least a start. So at some points, you might want to take and switch over to another type of file instead of using that saw, just to kind of see what kind of shape you really have. And I find this to be a much easier way to blend into up to those edges. It's a lot less aggressive, it's slower, and frankly, it's also easier on your hands because you're not having to work as hard. The saw really grabs at the material and really pushes it around. This is a much more gentle operation. Now, the one thing I didn't really do is All of my contours are pretty good, but I didn't really look at mapping it from the top. Like, what is this top shape going to be? So I'm going to think about that a little bit right now. I'm going to look at this shape and say, oh, okay, maybe I want coming to a point here. Maybe I'm going to make it contour like that there. So let's take my Sharpie. Maybe I'll go like that. And I'll think about that edge not coming all the way down to the bottom. Maybe it comes to a point here. So I can already tell I'm starting to change my ideas from my initial sketch, but at least that initial sketch gave me a direction. So let's start going back to this one. So sometimes you want to come back and redraw some of your contours. So if I look at this and I see my kind of bird-like shape, I want to come back and redraw that in just to remind myself what I'm going for. And that'll help me understand, again, what not to get rid of. Hmm. And that's about it for rough shaping.